I thought initially that service company budgeting, forecasting, or reporting would be easy.
What was your biggest challenge in your finance career?
Start thinking like a businessman if you're in an FP&A role.
One networking tip.
If something goes wrong, it directly affects the people. First, work on building relationships.
Your biggest career mistake, what would that have been?
I feel the playground is bigger. There are a lot of scope for opportunities.
Hey everyone, today we have got Dhawal Parvathikar with us, someone who probably needs no introduction in the FP&A and finance world. I'm sure you must have come across one of his webinars or training on YouTube. Dhawal is a chartered accountant and a senior management professional from IIM Ahmedabad. He has had an incredible career as a CFO and a senior finance leader with organizations like Bharat Petroleum, Trafigura, Publicis, Omnicom, and WPP Group. He is also my co-founder at FP&A Professionals Institute, a very passionate trainer, mentor, and coach. Dhawal has positively impacted careers of over 5,000 finance professionals with his training, coaching, and mentoring. Dhawal, welcome to FP&A Mentors Podcast. Very excited to have you here today.
Hi there, my name is Dhawal Parvathikar. I'm a qualified chartered accountant, 15 plus years industry experience across diverse sectors like oil and gas, software, advertising and PR, media, and much more. Over my career, I have largely worked in commercial roles. I started my career with an oil and gas company called Bharat Petroleum, where I was placed in pricing of industrial fuels. I also handled budgeting and FP&A. It was $6 billion plus turnover for my own department. Then after a brief stint with a commodity trading company, for a large part of my career, I have been with advertising and marketing firms and media firms. I found my piece with service companies. I thought initially that service company budgeting, forecasting, or reporting would be easy. But to my surprise, there were a lot of challenges that came in, and service companies have their own set of challenges, people challenges, because they're largely a people-driven business. If something goes wrong, it directly affects the people because the majority of your cost, like 40 to 50% of your sales, is actually people. Right. So that was a different learning experience. I met some amazing people in CEOs and CFOs in the advertising world, and it was a very enriching experience. After working for a few years in India as a CFO, then I moved to the Middle East. In the Middle East, I worked for a couple of years as a regional CFO with a large American public relations company. My extreme liking for training, coaching, mentoring led me to go on my own and establish FP&A Professionals Institute with my co-founder Asif Masani. And I'm truly loving training, coaching, and mentoring. And I've trained more than 5,000 professionals on various topics like financial planning and analysis, leadership, CFO coaching, business partnering, and much more. And I'm truly loving, and I love the fact that we're able to help finance professionals get to the next level in their careers. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me. A large part of my career has been on the commercial side and financial planning analysis side. My FP&A experience has largely been very rich, very diverse, and very satisfying. And I would like to share a couple of instances from my career. So I was once working with this large advertising company. It was a large French advertising group, and we had acquired a local small advertising agency. And this advertising agency had its own CEO, its own CFO, and their finance team. And my task was to go to that particular subsidiary and integrate their processes and bring them in alignment with the holding company's processes. So that was my main role. So I was deputed to this organization, and I used to go there. And when I interacted with their finance team and when I interacted with their CEO, it had its own CEO and CFO, they always looked at me with a certain reservation that, okay, somebody from holding company has come to boss around. So it was very difficult for them to establish that relationship with them. And it was my first forecasting and budgeting assignment with this company. And we were planning to prepare the budget for the next financial year. So I went to that CEO's office and I asked him that, hey, we have to now prepare a budget for the next financial year. And I discussed a few numbers with them. And I said that, how about $15 million? Should we put $15 million as our next year's budget? And he gave a stare at me for a few seconds and then started saying that, what is in it for you? I mean, you are just going to put the numbers as $15 million, but it is me who's going to go out there and achieve this number. So I know how difficult it is to sign clients, and you don't understand this fact. And then that was my starting point, and this was my first ever kind of a conversation with that particular CEO. It was a learning lesson for me that first you need to establish some kind of a rapport, some kind of a relationship, and then you can get things done. Cut to 6 months later, I helped him on so many aspects with certain clients, contracts, getting certain hiring approvals done from the headquarters for him. that kind of really cemented my relationship with him in such a beautiful way. And we became true partners after 6 months, and he trusted my advice on so many things. And I couldn't believe that this is the same person who was so tough on me 6 months ago. And he used to always call me into his cabin for any critical advice or any decision that he would like to take on certain clients or people. He used to always rely on my advice, and that's what true relationship building is. So I think my biggest lesson for working in FP&A was to first work on building relationships, because the role that FP&A plays is all about relationships. You will always be dependent on other team members to get certain input from them, and they will be dependent on you for providing certain reports and advice to them. So that's why I think relationships was probably the first and the most important lesson that I learned in an FP&A role. The second, a connected experience with the same CEO was also regarding something which I still feel that business acumen is something which is important for all FP&A professionals to learn. And we were once pitching for this particular client, Facebook, and we were coming up with a bid, and generally I used to get involved in a preparation of the bid and the contracts and the pricing. And then I went back to the CEO and I told him that, hey, I don't think so we should bid for Facebook, or at least not at this price, because we are making comparatively lower margins. On an average, on other clients, we made anywhere between 15 to 20% margin. And on this clients, we were only making about 5%, 5 to 7% margins. So I said, we should not bid at this price. Now again, he took a long pause, gave me a look, his typical look, and then said me that, do you know how many doors will it open if Facebook is our client? Do you know if we say that we work with Facebook, how many other technology clients will line up outside our doors to start working with us, or who would be keen to work with us? You're completely underestimating the business impact of having a client like Facebook on the roster. And this was an eye-opener for me that, okay, every time as a finance professional, I just don't need to think about just finance. Business is something which I have to be always thinking about. How can the financial decision, or how can getting a certain client or taking a certain financial decision have both financial and non-financial impacts? So I think that was the biggest lesson for me, that, okay, a business acumen is something which is generally expected. Start thinking like a businessman if you're in an FP&A role, and not just a finance guy or not just a rule book guy, So these were probably, I think, my two most important lessons, building relationships and focusing on understanding the business and developing business acumen. So these were my two biggest learnings when I got deep into FP&A roles, and I would recommend everybody to look at these two skill sets if they're serious about working in FP&A roles.
If I have to ask you, between the 6 months period, right, in the first story that you narrated, what did you do in terms of actions that helped you get there?
Sure. So I think a couple of things that I did right. One is that I always kept a very close eye on what does that person need. Does he need any report to take a certain decision? Does he need a hiring approval from the holding company? And I always made sure that I am at the forefront of that requirement, and made sure that I am able to smoothly, carry it on his behalf to the holding company and get the approvals done for him. So I had to take these steps to make sure and assure him that I am on his side. I'm on his team. We're in the same team. It's not the holding company versus the subsidiary company. We are all part of the same group. So I had to find out for opportunities which will help me cement that relationship. So I got a lot of things approved from the holding company for him, which helped me establish that relationship with the CEO.
About the second one, when you talked about the Facebook as a client, it eventually helped you get a lot of other clients after you got Facebook. Did you get Facebook on board?
We did get Facebook, and in fact, 3 months after that, a bid for Twitter came up, and by that time we already had a lot of experience, and in fact, we had a stronger chance to win Twitter because we already had Facebook on our roster. So it just did not stop at Facebook. So he was right in his understanding that the moment we got one client on board, it started opening up doors for other clients. Well, it may or may not turn out to be an immediate monetary gain, but of course, having a brand like Facebook on our roster does really make an impact when you're speaking to clients in a pitch.
Thank you so much, Dhawal. We'll now move to the next round, which is the rapid fire questions round.
Sure.
And we have 5 minutes, and we'll keep asking you questions till the time we hit the timer.
Favorite finance book? I think The CFO Lens by Ravi Kumar. I think that is one of my all-time favorites. I follow a lot of competitors' accounts on LinkedIn. That's number one. Plus, there are certain industry publications that you should always be subscribing to. Knowing about your own industry not only keeps you updated, but also it gives you that chance to speak to the business team members about certain critical decisions that competitors are taking or what's happening in the industry in general. That displays your understanding about the business and not just the numbers. I think it has always been around with people. It's not the technology, it's not the concept. Sometimes you're naturally good at these things, but it's always been dealing with tough people, establishing that relationship with them, and convincing that I'm here to help them. So that has been my biggest challenge. I have a certain bias, I must admit, that I love working with big companies and I'm not very keen of startups. I don't know, they're too volatile for me, and I feel that bigger companies have a different kind of a challenge. I feel the playground is bigger, there are a lot of scope for opportunities. Even a small improvement or a small process optimization can lead to, millions of dollars of savings, So I feel as a finance professional, my playground is much bigger in a multinational company. Again, that's just my bias, I would say. Give before they ask. Try and figure out how you can give people, and connect with them, before you even try and ask something or before you even try to make their connection. I can give you an example. On so many occasions, when I got a certain call from a recruiter or any headhunter, and if I was not going to take that position, I've always referred some great candidates or friends to this person. That has helped me cement and make a relationship with these headhunters in a much stronger way. And tomorrow when I need a job, I can definitely reach out to them and say, hey, can you find me a job? And this way, I think give before you ask is the number one rule to build any relationship.
If I have to ask you your biggest career mistake, what would that have been?
Biggest career mistake? I think it was in the initial days of my FP&A career, where I did not work on doing a sense check of the reports before I sent it to my CFO. Right? And it was the first ever role that I got where I was reporting to the CFO. I think doing a sense check of the reports, double checking the accuracy before sending it to somebody senior, I think I learned that the hard way.
Did you do any online courses, certifications on finance FP&A?
Plenty of them, but not very much on finance specific. But I did do a few courses on business partnering, data storytelling. I did a course on visualization that was largely on the finance focused. But I think the biggest game changer for me was also a general management course from IIM Ahmedabad that I had completed. So now that gave me a different perspective completely about various business teams, because we had about 110 people from 90 different companies from different departments who were in that classroom, which gave me a very diversified learning. And I started looking at other business operations with much more respect and understanding after that course. Finance and FP&A, of course, there is no substitute for fundamentals. You have to learn your budgeting, your forecasting, your building relationships, data storytelling. All these are your complete, these are your foundations and you cannot compromise on this. One other thing that I would definitely recommend is focus on building relationships, attend good industry events, network with people as much as you can.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll connect back soon.
Great. Thanks, Asif.